Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I think I still keep doing it. I should wait before I say hello, but hi. How you doing? Today is, excuse me, today is May the 3rd, and it is day 44 of lockdown. And I don't know about you, but those numbers are starting to sound like high numbers. 44 days is a long old time. But it's been an alright day, hasn't it?
Yes.
I will confess, I spent quite a lot of it asleep because I was quite hungover. As I said yesterday, I was having a little group chat with some of my girls and drank a silly amount of wine. So feeling the effects of that today. But not too bad actually. Like just a bit of I want to eat everything in the world and not do very much. But thankfully, both of those are an option at the moment. So
Yes.
yeah. I just realised the telly is on and reflecting in your glasses, so I'm going to turn it off. There we go.
We had some nice cakes today.
We did. Yes, so the cakes that I mentioned yesterday that were a gift from Liz, we have not eaten them all because there's quite a lot. But I ate today one of the chocolate fudge cake ones, which was very nice. And I'm not sure what it was called, but the one that was like 2 cookies with then like a chocolate creamy thing in the middle. Very nice. So like a cookie sandwich cake. It was very nice. The cookies were especially nice, I think.
I had one of those each as well, and I also had a banana Biscoff loaf.
Which was, I suspect you'll be having both of those because I don't like banana, but was it nice?
It was yummy, especially the Biscoff-y flavoured.
Biscoff.
I don't know how you pronounce it.
Biscoff, I think.
Biscoff-y flavoured icing on the top.
Biscoff I do like, but banoffee I do not. Banana I don't. So.
I have to admit, I do like a nice cake, but oftentimes for me a cake is just a carrier for icing.
Oh, right, okay. So it was good on the icing front, that one.
Yes.
So that's also, we sort of chilled out and watched a film this afternoon. So I spent most of the morning asleep. And then I went in with Poppet for a few hours. But then I came downstairs and watched a film for a bit before I went back up and joined Poppet when you took the dog out.
I just realised, like, if we were a slicker, more professional operation, I'd have looked up the year of the film, wouldn't I? So I could go, we watched 2000 and film The House starring
well, that's what we watched.
Yes,
I don't know what year it came out.
I think it's a couple of years old now. It's like
I'd guess like 2016 or 17ish. I would have.
It's one of those ones I wanted to watch. I saw trailers for it in the cinema, and then I don't think it ever actually made it to my local cinema, which, given I lived quite near quite a big Cineworld.
Cardiff.
Yeah, so I lived near a big Cineworld at the time. So the fact that they showed trailers and it didn't actually force its way onto one of the screens there at any point I wasn't aware of was maybe an indicator of how successful that was as a film.
Yeah, I have to say I was fairly underwhelmed. It was okay.
That is, fair enough. It was a film
starring... Great cast. I love the people in it, so that's why I thought I would like it more than I did. But...
It starred Will Ferrell.
And Amy Poehler.
Amy Poehler and Jason Mantzoukas.
Love all of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also had some sort of smaller parts and cameos from other people that I recognised from other things. So, and it was, it kind of did what I expected in terms of being a film you can put on when you've got a hangover.
Yeah.
And not have to think too hard.
Yeah. It did have its moments. I did laugh out loud a couple of times, which isn't always the case.
I feel like the performers lifted the material.
Yeah. Yes.
But it wasn't particularly inspired. It didn't. It's not one I'd recommend, nor one that I'm going to rush back to.
No.
But very easy.
It was fine, basically. Yeah. But while I was watching it, I was sort of not particularly invested, but it did the job.
But we weren't really
not
to
high
anything
praise
that you needed to invest in too much.
No, so it did the job for what I was after. But can't say it's one that I would say, oh yeah, you have to watch that. Don't put it at the top of your watch list, basically.
No.
But nice easy hangover afternoon. And then you went out with the dog and I went back upstairs and went back to my true crime and Poppet coaching, and it was very nice because Poppet came and actually lay on me, which she doesn't do a lot. She likes to be by you, but she doesn't actually get on you that often. So I was trapped under a cat for quite a while, which was lovely.
It's nice when they show you affection that isn't just food related, isn't it? Like sometimes they're very they sort of come up and purr at you because they just want feeding. But it's nice. Like today, I gave Ford some slow blinks, and he came up and licked my nose.
Aw, he's so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if the Feliway is doing its job in there, because we've got the Feliway plug-in, which is supposed to sort of chill cats out a bit, and we've noticed that she's sort of surprisingly chill about when you put the cone back on her and stuff, which isn't really in keeping with her personality. She is sort of trying to escape, but I think that's more out of boredom than sort of being unhappy. I think she's just a bit like, oh, I don't want to be trapped in here, but she seems pretty chill.
Yeah, I really thought she was going to struggle with, we would struggle with putting her cone back on, and she would be a pain about it.
But yeah, she just sort of goes, yep, this
which
again.
Which is good, because if she was more of a pain about it, we'd probably just have to leave it on.
Yeah.
Because we'd be like, well, we can't get it back on her if we take it off.
And it makes such a difference, her being able to groom herself. I think makes her feel a lot better. Because also I noticed it was only on her for sort of about a week and a half before we... before she took it off the first time. But in that time, you sort of see that her coat goes a bit sort of oily looking, and she just looks a bit scruffy. But now she looks fine, because she's able to groom. You just have to keep an eye on her.
And we've got only another 5 weeks left, so I'm sure she'll be climbing the walls.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, to be honest, I think we will be as well. Like, I'm pretty over sitting in that room, but we've got another 5 weeks of it. So there we go. Oh, another thing we did today, while we were both in there though, is a friend of ours, she actually works at an escape room, but she's designed an online escape room herself. I think it's still in the testing stage, so I probably won't put the link in it now, but if it becomes more available, I will put the link in it then. But it was really good. That was enjoyable, and sort of gave us
sort of fun diversion, wasn't it? When you're stuck in the house to have something to do, some puzzles.
Yeah, it scratched my escape room itch quite well. I thought it was sort of an Egyptian, sort of trapped in a tomb / pyramid kind of themed one, and you've got to get out.
So you've got puzzles, but it's also kind of with a bit of story as well. I felt like it was a nice level of puzzles of kind of not, impossibly difficult. But you
did have to put a bit of
not so easy that it's
bit of discussion and a bit of sort of having
to be a challenge. But obviously you don't want it to be too difficult, because unlike an escape room, you can't kind of buzz someone for a clue if you get stuck. So you do want it to be solvable, but yeah, it was good, really good. Really enjoyed that. And actually, she mentioned that they are making their escape rooms. A digital version that you can do with a live streamed Games Master online. So we're going to actually give one of their rooms a go. So they've got a few rooms. The only one of them's been converted to this format so far, I believe. So one evening we're going to do that, which should be fun, because that is going to be, you're going to basically, I assume it's going to be, you describe what you would do and ask them to sort of say, okay, what's in there? Okay, I'm going to look in that. And then they kind of guide you through it. But we haven't done it yet, so we don't know exactly how it's going to work. They will be made available to buy as like a virtual games room experience that you can get from their website. So again, once that is
and done over Zoom, so you could still do it with a few friends that you would do the room with. So I think that'll be really fun. So it'll be when we do try that out, I will see how that goes. Because I was sort of wondering about doing that, like possibly for our rooms. The first thought I had was, I don't know if I want to put it online, because that's kind of putting your content out there. But if it's done live over Zoom, it's not like the players end up with the room content to go away with, so it's possible. So that's an interesting one, because but obviously that's one of the things with an escape room. If you've designed all the puzzles and things, you don't want to put it all out there, because then people don't have to come and do the room. And when this is all over, I do hope that people will want to come and do our rooms.
Yes.
That's maybe another way to scratch my escape room itch. Without sort of anybody having to work when they're not supposed to. But on that note, though, some interesting stuff's been talked about. I'll start with over the pond, because America's gone fucking mental. And basically, when they originally put in the lockdown measures, they were to be in place, enforced until May the 1st, at which point they were going to revisit and look at them. What Donald Trump, in his wisdom, has done is basically said, I'm going to leave it down to the individual state governors to decide what they want to do. So America being the capitalist behemoth that it is, quite a few states have decided to reopen, even though their death toll is still rapidly climbing. It's not even slowing down over there, I don't think. I think it's just starting to like not increase exponentially anymore. It's leveling off, but it's not even decreasing, and they're having huge numbers. So the basis for that, I think, is just people need to earn money, so there's pressure on businesses to reopen. But that is a bad fucking call, because if you're in lockdown and you're seeing figures like they're getting, when people are out and about, that's gonna massively shoot up really quickly.
Well, I guess we'll see what
in the name of money
immunity really looks like, won't
yeah.
But
the people I feel sorry for, though, are the people who are going to be forced back into work when they don't really want to be working, but if their business is open, they're going to have to work. So people are going to have to put themselves at risk who don't want to, because other people want to get their nails done and want to get their hair done. And it's just, like, that's not essential.
That's it, isn't it?
People are going to die.
People want to do the sensible thing, but they can't be furloughed. You know, the lockdown's been ended and there isn't a furlough for them, and there isn't, you know, support there to do the right thing. So they have to go out and earn money and put themselves in harm's way, and that's horrific. And the terrible thing about it is there'll be people over here looking over there and going, well, I want to go out and I want to do this, that and the other, and kind of using that as an example that we should be following, as opposed to as an example of what not to do. But the thing about America is they've always sort of prized freedom very highly.
Yeah.
And sure, freedom is great, but they've prized
freedom.
They prize freedom sort of above and beyond, you know, the rights, other people's other rights.
Yeah.
To the point of, like, you know, my freedom to do what I like apparently contravenes other people's freedom to not be encroached upon, and you know, and we see it with like gun law and all sorts of things in America where they go, it might, you know, maybe guns are dangerous, but it's my freedom to own a gun and potentially kill someone.
Yeah.
You know,
you can't take that away.
It's my right.
Despite the fact that all of the evidence suggests that maybe it would be better if you didn't have them.
I suspect there's an element of that.
I think there's a lot of that going on.
We, you know, we need to be free to go out and run our businesses, and free to go to church, and free to do what we want to do.
Well, the thing that
the government and the state can't tell us what to do, and you know,
was particularly galling to see were protesters. So protesting the lockdown, using the phrase and banners, "My body, my choice," which is part of the sort of pro-choice movement. So to kind of use that for this feels very tacky
and
bit
ill.
Yeah, a little bit, well, just a bit tasteless, that, I thought. And also just sort of seeing these, like, middle-class white men just being like, my body, my choice, and like, fuck off, will you?
And, but also, it doesn't even work, does it? Because it's not going, well, I'm going to get infected, and that's up to me. It's, I'm going to get infected,
and I'm going to infect other people.
Day, and, make other people ill, and risk everyone else's lives. And that's...
Well,
you know,
it's interesting that you then sort of said, well, what they do over there will have a knock-on effect to what people want to do over here. Today, they've already started making noises about reopening schools. And the Welsh minister said that it would take, if they decide to open schools, it will take at least 3 weeks to plan how to do that and how to implement all of the different social distancing measures in order to do that. So we'd be looking at early June. Similarly, Boris Johnson has sort of said we'd be looking at opening schools in a phased reopening, and it would probably be primary schools that we would focus on opening first, because those children need the most sort of... like, it was actually partly for like childcare purposes rather than actually educational purposes, but it was sort of, they're the ones that need the more intensive level of childcare, so that might relieve pressure on adults to go back to work, etc. I think that's absolutely fucking bonkers. We should not be relaxed. Like, I get it, everybody is fed up, but fed up is better than dead.
Well, I remember this at the other end of this, when it was all starting to close down. And they were telling us not to go to the pubs and not to go to restaurants and bars and hang out and socialise. But the schools were still all open. And just thinking, well, if you're not going to shut the schools down, I mean, kind of undermining everything, right?
Yeah.
Because the schools, primary school kids are going to run around and interact, and you can't force them to maintain social distancing. Like they're kids, right? And they're full of energy. And,
we've seen adults aren't great at it, so but also just in a classroom setting, there's no possible way you can keep people apart well enough in that smaller space.
No, they can't suddenly double the classrooms. Right? So what are they going to do? Sort of halve the capacity and say only half the kids can come back to school? Well,
there's various talks about having different age group or different numbers of kids in on different days, or not actually have the whole school shifts. All back in. Doing it sort of in the morning you'll have this age group, in the afternoon you'll have this age group, and you'll have more space. But ultimately we're not there yet. Essentially, our daily death toll, although it is dropping, it's still in the several hundreds. I think today was 315, but yesterday's was about 700. So we're still losing hundreds of people to this. And essentially, as far as I'm concerned, we shouldn't be thinking about releasing lockdown until we're down into double digits kind of level, because that's where we were when we implemented lockdown. If you're still getting thousands of new cases a day, then if
things are worse now than when we decided we should probably shut down,
then they're not good enough to release.
And sure, get your plans in place, and maybe it takes 3 weeks to do the plans, but that doesn't mean let's plan for 3 weeks and then immediately open.
Yeah.
Take 3 weeks getting those plans in order so that when we do open, those plans are
maybe get those plans ready and
plan well ahead of time. Yeah. That's fine.
To be fair, they weren't saying schools will reopen on the 1st of June, but there's noises of that sort of. Once they put that out there, that becomes part of the sort of public consciousness,
people
doesn't
get it? In
it?
Their
People
heads, and
thinking
if it doesn't
that's
happen, people will say, "Well, we were told."
Yeah, and I think mostly one thing that I was quite pleased with is most people seem to be falling in the category of I think that's too soon. There are people who are going, I want to get back to work, I want to go back to but it doesn't. I don't think that's the majority, and actually most people who have kids are very much saying, although everybody's hating homeschooling and finding it all very difficult, it's their kids that they're going to be putting out there on the front line. And I think very few parents are willing to be like, okay, you first. The initial argument for that was that it doesn't seem to generally affect children so badly. And that, across the board, still seems to be the case. The stats are far more weighted towards the elderly and ill. But there are kids have asthma, kids have allergy, kids have died of this. But failing that, they spread germs like nobody's business. Well, kids aren't, particularly if you're talking kids under the age of 7. If you're talking infant school type level kids, you're not going to be able to get them to socially distance effectively. You're not going to get them to use really good enough hand washing and all of that stuff.
Because if you've got your kid at home, you can literally supervise the hand washing. Yeah. If you've got even 2 or 3 kids, you can make sure
you can stand in the bathroom with them, watch them, time them, and tell them, right, you have done the backs and blah blah blah. But
a classroom, even if it's half class, that you're looking at 15 kids, that's immediately too many for one adult to kind of supervise and make sure they're doing all the right hygiene.
And you're putting those teachers at risk.
But you only, and I don't mean this flippantly, you only have to look at head lice.
Yeah.
Kids are going to play together and they'll bump their heads or they'll rub their heads together and then they come home and they hug their parents, and before you know it, the whole household's got head lice.
That's the point, actually. Now, while everybody's on lockdown, would be a great time to eradicate head lice.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get rid of all the head lice. Everyone
just any head lice. Just everyone just buy head lice shampoo. Just everyone.
You're allowed to go to the pharmacy.
Yeah, or get head lice shampoo. Just make sure, even if you don't think your kids have got it, just better safe than sorry. We'll all do a head lice, and
we'll all do a head lice.
We'll all do a head lice, and then we'll. It's the great new dance. That's
do the head lice.
Do the head lice. It's the isolation dance that everyone's doing.
So that could be. If we should make that a thing. You doing
do
the head
lice. That's the head lice.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be doing it. You wait to see Kanye West next video.
You think Kanye West watches our vlogs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's optimistic. But yeah, so
that looks pretty good.
But yeah, I think like going back to sort of it just seems like absolutely fucking bonkers to be even really talking about that. Speaking of things that they probably shouldn't have talked about, back at the start-ish, it wasn't the very first, but in early April, Matt Hancock in one of the daily press briefings set out the goal to be testing 100,000 people by the end of the month. And it increasingly looked like they weren't going to hit that target. Because it was just it was going up, but not enough. And I think at one point they were still they'd only done about 30,000, and that was a week to go. And it was just like this isn't going to happen. So miraculously, on the 30th of April, they got over 100,000 tests done. But
or did they?
Yeah. They did some, and like, how long did they think that was going to work as a scheme? But what they actually did was they included tests that they had sent out to people to do at home, which is not the same as having done 100,000 tests. But also, even if we hadn't just gone, well, that's not true though, is it? Because also, like, immediately people went, well, okay, what were the results of those tests? Because we should have a spike of 100,000 cases of negative or positive, but they didn't have those because it was about 40,000 of them. So we're not talking like they just topped it up a little bit. It was about 40,000 of them had been posted. But even if we hadn't looked at it that closely, the next day they didn't have that false bit of number to bolster the day's testing because they'd already posted all of these tests out. So then it's dropped down to 79,000 and something. It's like, well, you shouldn't have promised that, should you? But also, why the fuck aren't we testing that number of people?
To be fair,
we're under testing. Like,
to be fair though, to the Tories.
Do we have to?
Yeah, no, come on.
Okay.
To be fair, like, lying blatantly and disrespecting the intelligence of the voting public served them very well during the election campaign.
That's fair.
They were never really called on it.
No.
They did it quite blatantly, and it didn't really stop them sort of storming into power and getting a better result than they'd had at the previous general election. So, I mean, why wouldn't they think the same methods would serve them well now?
Well,
seems a bit unfair to suddenly be calling them on their shit.
Well, the thing is, they're getting away with it, aren't they? They are getting away with it. Like, if this was happening, somebody pointed out, if this was another country, say France, for example, they would be uproar.
Oh, they'd have their heads off by now, wouldn't they, France?
Well, they got prior. But we're just kind of taking it. And there are still people going, well done. Today, I should have written them down, but there was a tweet that went out, and it said, just to put this in perspective, Britain has a higher death toll than all of these countries, and there was a list of 14 European countries, and then at the bottom, combined. So, and they were huge, like, we're not talking, they haven't, like, carefully selected, like, small little Eastern European, it was like Greece, Denmark, Norway, Germany, Poland, Finland, like, I can't remember what all of them were, but basically, this is a shit show. Everybody else around the world, apart from the United States, seems to be looking in at us going, what the fuck are they doing? But we're just mindlessly carrying on with it. And the fact that people are talking about relaxing lockdown, like,
people praising the Tories for what they're doing, or just saying, well, now isn't the time for
now
criticism,
isn't the time. Now is the time.
When is the time then?
If ever there is a time to be absolutely scrutinising every single move, I think it's probably when those decisions may mean the deaths of many hundreds and thousands of people. Our total death toll now, today, of the official figures, because already we're calling them bullshit as well, because they were not counting deaths outside of hospitals and care homes, and lots of people who have this are advised not to go to hospital, is 28,446. That's a lot. That is a huge amount of people to have died with this. But when you sort of, because all the people are going, oh, it's just like flu. Well, no, average death of flu over a year is in the 8 to 12,000 region in any given year. We're just in May, and we only got this virus. I think our first case was at the end of January. So this is whilst we're under lockdown. Lockdown we've got, I keep sort of using that. It is, yes, most of us are staying home unless you're key workers, but even the level of lockdown is much more relaxed than most other countries. Most other countries will have one named person in the household who has a pass and an ID, and they're the one person who is allowed to go to shops and pharmacies. They can only use it like once a day. I don't know how they actually keep track of that, but they can only use it once a day or in an emergency. They can't exercise, they can't walk dogs, they can't do any of that. We are basically still allowed out and about, and nobody's really stopping or checking. I think the police are doing what they can to stop and check, but they like, there's too many people just out and about, and you can just say, oh, I'm just going to work, and they're not going to check.
Yeah, ultimately, we've been going to the shop no more than kind of once every sort of nearly once a week, maybe a bit more than that on occasion, but we haven't been going for it. But basically, if we wanted to, I could go and take the dog for a walk in the woods, I could go to Tesco, I could then go for a run, I could then go to the corner shop, and who's to check? It's self-policing, and we've been
people
trying
aren't.
to do
Like,
the right
there are
thing,
people we know that there are people who are mixing households and meeting friends and sort of being like, oh, it's fine if there's not that many of us. But I sort of think the public consciousness will follow what the leadership is suggesting, and the leadership has been very wishy-washy about the importance of this.
Well,
and so it sort of feels, if they seem relaxed about it, we're going to be relaxed. If they all went, fuck it up, guys, this is like battle stations, stay the fuck home, this is a real thing to panic about. Yes, people would panic, but people would stay the fuck home.
And it's things like Boris Johnson telling us to not visit our mums on Mother's Day, and then going to visit his own mum on Mother's Day. And it's when it's like, when you're a kid and you think, I want to be the leader, I want to be the boss because then I can be in charge of everyone and tell me what to do, and I can do what I like.
I did not think like that as a child.
But I think that's like a child's idea of what a boss is.
Yeah.
Like, a boss
someone who tells everyone what to do.
Tells people what to do, but because they're the boss, no one tells them what to do. They can do what they want. Right? And I think that is what Boris Johnson's idea of being Prime Minister is. Like, I tell other people what to do, but I've been voted leader. So
everybody has to do as I say, but I can do whatever I want.
Whereas actually being a leader is a position that comes with responsibilities, and
what you say matters, how you say it matters,
and
lead by example.
Exactly. So he should, if anything, be really, really strict on himself and not be visiting his mum for Mother's Day, because he needs to set an example for the public.
Very
but
cavalier.
People just go, well, he's telling us not to, but he's doing it.
Yeah, he was
obviously fine.
Very cavalier about the whole risk level of it, because before it really was getting towards, oh, hang on, this is turning into a bit of a situation, but it was on our radar, he was saying, oh, yes, no, I'm still shaking hands with people. I went to a hospital last week, and I know they had COVID patients there, and I was shaking everyone's hand. Now, first of all, that was a lie, because they didn't have any COVID patients. But second of all, don't tell people, oh, I was still shaking hands, it's fine, basically, because then people are going, oh, it's all a bit of a fuss over nothing. Like, better to be overcautious, surely. Better to just, maybe, like, wouldn't it be great if they'd been criticised for potentially over-preparing for this? Because it's not like, let's say they'd stockpiled loads of PPE, they had more than they needed, well then they could do what Germany's doing, which is shipping it out to other countries and helping other people out and actually, like, being a really cool bunch of people about it. Germany had... they locked down before us, a stricter lockdown than us, and their healthcare system was so well prepared that they had spare capacity even at their peak, and other labouring countries were sending their COVID patients to Germany. Nobody is going, oh, look at that bunch of losers. Look how well prepared they were. Oh, little,
so that's how Angela Merkel's been doing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, our Prime Minister was once quite good on Have I Got News For You. So I guess it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Very much swings and roundabouts. I bet Angela Merkel would be shit on Room 101.
Oh, God, it's depressing. It's embarrassing, it's depressing,
On
and,
a lighter note,
Yeah?
I'm wearing a Paul McCartney t-shirt, And people often criticise me for owning and wearing too many Paul McCartney t-shirts. Well, I haven't worn one in ages.
You were wearing one yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
You were wearing a blue one with Paul McCartney's.
I forgot that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I visibly took the wind out of your sails.
I just think it's important to be supporting artists during the lockdown.
I dare say he's probably doing all right.
We don't know. No way of knowing. He's an old man. He's vulnerable.
He is in the vulnerable category. Oh, no, don't. Oh, it's okay.
If anything happens to Paul McCartney, I don't think I'll cope.
I'm sure he's staying at home and is quite able to socially distance.
So.
Oh, God.
Look after yourself, Paul.
Oh, bless.
I'll tell you what, how we cheer ourselves up. Should we leave on a dance?
Oh, I'm not doing the headlines.
Come on, do the headlines. Do the headlines for me. Do the headlines. Do the headlines. Headlines.
Right. This has descended into madness now. Right. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll maybe hone our headlight dance skills.
I feel like you were doing it a bit fast. You got to do it like a 70s funk disco
Alright,
thing.
we'll practice, shall we?
Alright.
Alright, we'll
now we know what we're doing tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow, guys.